Welcome everyone to this evening's webinar, the role of the coaching officer, club coaching officer. Great to see so many people here tonight from all over the country, which is absolutely fantastic to see. I'm William Harmon, Head of Coach Development for the LGFA. I'm joined by my colleague, Niall Mulrine. Niall, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, how's it going, everyone? Niall Moran, I'm head of volunteer development, so great to be on with you tonight as well.
Brilliant, excellent. Really looking forward to this topic. Anyone, look, as we go along, if you have any questions or queries throughout tonight, or if we're not covering something that you like answered, please, in the chat function, please put your question chat function, and we'll do our best to answer it as we go along. Okay. So let's get cracking. Good to see you. How are you? Hope you're well. Okay, so off we go. So what are we trying to achieve by the end of this webinar? Hopefully we'll have you'll be able to list the roles and responsibility of the club coaching officer. And I suppose what's very important here is that it can be as far reaching as you want it to be. You can make it what you want it to be in this role. But I suppose what we're going to try to go through tonight is, well, what's the foundation? How do we get the foundation right before we start to exhale in terms of because sometimes we think I suppose, Niall, sometimes we think we have to get everything done straight away. When actually it's a process and it takes time. So it's about just being patient, I suppose. Niall, really into it, you know?
That's it. And it's trying to do everything at once, but also trying to do the big things all at once. Like a lot of this is about trying to get the small things in place and the structures in place and the things in the background that no one sees that makes everything work well. Isn't that right, William?
100%. And sometimes it could be organizational things, guys, and then the coaching stuff comes along. But look, we'll go through as we go along. And look, we're not going to cover everything in minute detail. We'll give you our opinion on what we feel where you can play a huge role as a club coaching officer. But later on, we'll give you little kind of, I suppose, signpost you to other areas that, do you know what, if you want to learn more about your role, then there's other little areas we can signpost you that act as a refresher to this evening. Okay, so let's see how it goes tonight. But please, any questions, queries, put them in the chat function. Niall and myself will monitor them. If there's any questions as we go along, we'll go through them. So what are we all trying to achieve? We're all trying to achieve a real positive coaching environment, a real positive coaching climate. And other words used would be kind of a good culture. And I suppose to achieve that, one needs to have real clarity around purpose and your objective. So think and reflect about this. If I was to ask you now, could you tell me in 10, 20 seconds what your club coaching philosophy is? Then you're in a great place. If you know your club habit, but you struggle to say it, then maybe it might be something just to make sure you refine and get it out there. And if you don't know what it is, then maybe tonight will be a real help to you. And what are your values, what you stand for, what you believe in? Because if you get clarity on those two things, it'll help in how you go about your business in terms of coaching in the club, how you approach various coaching items, issues, that I suppose, and how you interact and how you engage. I suppose, Niall, ultimately, everyone on here tonight as a club coaching officer, it's about, well, what can I do to assist in achieving this positive club coaching climate?
Yeah, and it's nearly, William. A lot of people are too busy with, I suppose, the what and the where and the how. They're never thinking about why, and they're not thinking about why we do things. What's the reason behind it? What are we about? At the end of the day, we're a community-based sport. So are we about, win-win-win championships at every level, or are we about developing players as much as possible? Are we about giving people the best experience? Are we about giving people as much possibility or opportunity to participate as possible? So it's about the way is very important, I think.
The why is important because I think, Niall, and we'll mention it later on, if you get clarity around your why, then your approach will be more consistent. And we'll touch on that again later as we go through it. So I suppose look at this. I suppose if you look at this from two ways, the first diagram on your left, I suppose what we're trying to, advocate here is that if we get that foundation right from a club coaching foundation and how we go about our business, and we get high quality coaches involved and we give them support and guidance, then we'll always have the player in our minds, in the center of our focus, that everything we do is to ensure there's a positive environment to allow the player to be the best they can be, and sustain a love for the game and stay involved in our club. But if you look at the other way, if that club support structure in terms of that environment, the coaching that's going on in your club, then the player is going to be at the bottom of that pyramid. And what you see here is it's a little bit of a tipping point. So because the environment ain't where it should be, then the player will decide, do I want to be a part of this or don't. And it's like the players on a beam. It could go either way. So what we're trying to achieve as club coaching officers is, can we create that coaching environment that will enable us to, I suppose, for a player to develop a love for the game and sustain a love for the game. I suppose, Niall, there's a fine balance there in terms of, it's really how we go about our business, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, William. As you said, you want to create that sort of place where players can develop at their own pace, can develop into the player that they're going to be, no matter what that kind of player is. But you also want to challenge everyone there as well, don't you? You want to challenge people.
Yeah, but not only players, you're challenging coaches as well. And
Yeah.
coaches want to improve. So if you
Yeah.
have more coaches, better coaches, you're going to have more players, better players. It's as simplistic as that in terms of its delivery, but it's very complex because it's not easy, because you're dealing with people at the end of the day. And when you're dealing with people, you know yourself, everyone, it can be difficult at times. So you're important. So everyone here tonight, you're important, because the identification or the selection or the, you know, of the executive within the club, a lot of it is you know, through, I suppose, officership and the, you know, the selection. But like, you're by appointment. You're here because the club deem you as a key person that can help them ensure that there's a real positive coaching environment that goes on in the club. So you're by appointment. You're on the executive by appointment. So you've been identified, headhunted, I suppose, approached to be on this role. I suppose, Niall, in itself, that's saying something.
Yeah, and I suppose, William, I suppose I'm going to get a bit nerdy here. I'm going to get into a bit of detail. Like, you know, we've had a club coaching officer in the LGFA for a long number of years. Over the recent past, in the last couple of years, William, you've obviously been involved in almost like amalgamating that role across Gaelic games and having a defined role. The club coaching officer, as it stands now across Gaelic games, is probably the same that the LGFA has always done, in that you're looking at structures, you're looking at backgrounds, you're the link between executive and coaching structure and coaches in the club. You're a link between coaches and players coming in, and it's so important that as you said, you're appointed there, so you have to be the person that knows what they're doing. You have to be the person that has the skills for the job. It's not a popularity contest.
100% ain't a popularity contest. And I suppose as we go through the role, it'll be probably make a lot more clear on that. Exactly. It's not about getting the most popular person, it's getting the right person. I suppose it applies across the board, doesn't it? So really, everyone, the value of you in the club is huge. Like, you're the one person that could either initiate change, raise or maintain standards. Because I think, and it's very important, there's a lot of people here tonight and a lot of clubs here tonight, they're in a good place. They're in a good place. So how can you add to that? Or there may be clubs where, okay, there's a bit of improvement we can do. Well, what can you do to assist in improving that? And I suppose you play a key role. You're a leader here. And all it takes for change, or it takes for lead, it's just one person to lead the way, because others will follow. And culture is all determined about the people involved. But you have a key role to play in this. But I suppose the point I'm making here and what we're going to get across is that, how can we do that without being overburdened by the role, or overawed by the role? So I suppose now our job is tonight to say, okay, well, what are the simple steps that we can, what are the quick wins we can do to help you achieve these things?
Yeah, and like you said there, William, standards, like, and it's the basis for everything we want to probably achieve in a club is having standards. Like, and that standard might be, we've seen it with previous clubs we work with, William, you know, that all their coaches are qualified to a certain level. That's a standard. You know, that's something the club coaching officer can actually, a value that you can instill, that you say, look, we're not just taking anyone that comes. We're not taking anyone that put their hand up. We want the best. We want the best people that have the best skills, the best knowledge, the best experience to be involved with coaching our players. And that's something as a club coaching officer you'll have a real hand in.
Yeah, and we'll show you examples, guys, of I suppose those standards. And what do those standards look like? We'll show you them shortly. So we hope you're enjoying it so far. Any questions or queries in the chat function, put them in there, and we'll take it as we go along. Okay, so I think, now you said there about, you know, what type of person you can be. Look, you can change a person, but what type of person you know, at the end of the day, I think everyone, you can read these in your own time. But for me, it's a people's person. I suppose a person really that can bring people with them, Niall, that can bring them along a journey, and I probably help them see that they're the bigger picture and get them to understand, well, the role they play in achieving that. So it's really kind of, you know, that role of, you know, can I get a group of people together, good people, that'll bring them on a journey and help them, I suppose help others develop and improve and maintain standards. And I suppose, and also is a person that is not afraid to make difficult decisions when it's merited or needed as well. And we speak about, is it just one person doing this? Obviously, there's a lot more people, but it's just that's important, I suppose, Niall, really. Is can you play a role in that intermediary between either the executive and the coaches, or the coaches and players, or the bigger picture?
Yeah, and hey, William, you know, one of the skills there that's not listed that's not maybe ultra important for club coaching officers to be a very good coach. That's not one of them. You know, it's not up there.
Yeah.
Can be surely, and that person might make a good club coaching officer. But you're right, the communicator, the delegator, the person who'll network and bring people together and bring people along with them is far more important in this role.
I suppose an influencer, Niall, who can
Yeah.
influence and
Yeah.
get people to think differently is a powerful skill as well. To get them to see things from a different angle is a powerful skill in itself. And I think that's that's what I think as a coaching officer, is that you're an innovator. You should be someone that's going to try things and be brave as well. It's not there being brave in making tough decisions, but also being brave in trying new things and not be afraid to try new things. But what's the worst can happen? It just doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, so look, give a read through them there, guys. They're the skills, but I think we just outlined the main ones, really. If you have any other thoughts or ideas, please put in the chat function. I'm sure others will be interested to read over. So where do we start? And look, we've kind of break it down to 6 areas, but there's a lot more. And we might touch on them all tonight, but look, we'll touch on these. So where do you start? So if you're new or you're existing and you want to know, well, okay, well, where do I start? Where do I start with all this? Or where can I go where I know we need to improve? We'll speak about that coaching group, the lead coaches, assistant coaches, and about how do we go about selecting the right people. We'll speak about those guidelines and those standards, and well, where do we start, or how do we ensure that they're being, I suppose, aligned across the board with all coaches. We'll speak about community practice concept in the club. We'll speak about, I suppose, other initiatives and programs that are there that may support you in what you're trying to do. Because sometimes there's no point, we all have good ideas, but is there stuff there and resources there that we can utilize without reinventing wheels? And I suppose we'll speak about, obviously, the collaboration and cooperation with stakeholders. And just so you know, everyone, all these webinars are recorded and they're all on our LGFA YouTube channel. So while we'll touch on the philosophy and guidelines tonight, while we'll touch on community practice concepts, we actually have webinars specifically on those 2 topics on our LGFA YouTube channel under Coach Education. So if you want to know more about these 2 topics after tonight, they're all there for you to view on the LGFA YouTube channel. Now, is there something coming in the chat, or are we good to go?
No, just Adrian asked, will the slides be available? But I suppose, William, like the recording will be available, isn't that right?
The recording will be available. So yeah, Adrian, so we'll get the recording. The recording's available for you afterwards. So you can look back in your own time, or you can share it with any group members. Okay, so area 1, where do we start? Or if you're an existing coaching officer, and just let you know, everyone, Niall, were you a coaching officer in your club by any chance?
Very bribriefly, aye. Very briefly.
Were you kicked out or something?
No. Probably one of a number of jobs maybe at the time. You know?
Yeah, but I was actually I was a coach after my club for three years as well. So yeah, so we're bringing that experience with us as well. So where do we start? I think where you always start is how do I get as much information I can possible to inform my next step or my initial step. So like you're here tonight to get clarity in your role. Okay, we're going to give you other resources that can help you with that as well. Well, how does the club function? Like, is your club, one code? Is it multiple code? Is it one code model or one club model? What are the processes in place? Who are the people involved? What is the current status of the club? So the more information you gather initially, or even now where you're at, if you're a year or 2 into the job, then it'll really help you in making good decisions going forward, or inform your decisions going forward. But the big thing I would always say is be patient. Like, you're in the role, you're probably thinking 1 year, but I'd be thinking to make any impact, it could be year 3 before you see something really, really come to the fore. So I would say be patient with it, and give it the time and stick at it. So I suppose now looking at this, and this is important, I suppose, is this is just a study that was done to get against family around the coaching officer. But I suppose the ones I want to highlight and speak about is that, where do people in this room fit with these findings? So is there people in the room tonight that are coaching officer, but as Niall said, they're doing other roles. They're coaching multiple teams. They're involved in other activities. When I was coaching officer, it was the only thing I did. And I do a lot of coaching, everyone. But it was the only thing I did. I gave it everything. So I put all my eggs into that basket. I gave it the best attention I could. So I said, I stay away from the coaching. I'm going to be impartial here. I'm going to just do the coaching officer role. And then, okay, to do the best job possible, can you do it on your own? I don't think so. I think it's so big now, and so it's such an important role. What we did now was I just got people around me in a kind of a coaching committee. So we got people. So we're one club model. So we had people ensuring that there's hurling, ladies football representatives on that committee. So I was one of a group, and the group was very important. So I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? I just think it's nice to see those stats. I know it came in pre-registration about should a coaching officer be coaching. Yes, having coaching experience may assist, but I would think, to do the job really well. Now, I understand, though, every club is at different stage of development, which is very important to note as well, and recognize that. But I think keeping sole focus and having a group of people around you would be important.
I think you're right, because it's become such a big thing. It's obviously the main thing a club does is games, and coaching's such a big part of that. It probably is useful that you're having your sole focus. Now, that's not to say you can't be coaching a team, you can't be involved in the club in other ways, but it's good, as you say as well, to have a committee around you and give them jobs, not just to be there in name. So they're responsible for maybe actively coaching or getting the coaches or coordinating the coaches at a youth level, at an older level, that you're giving them roles within the committee. It's not just bouncing off ideas,
Yeah, it could be a situation whereby someone might be a link with the local school. It
Mhm.
might be someone whereby, that could be linked with ensuring facilities are appropriate, or maybe equipment. So there's a lot of roles you can play within that. But I suppose what we're learning here is that doing it solely will give you a lot more time to do the job well. And then I suppose doing it with a group of people will definitely ensure you're not overburdened with the role. Again, guys, share your thoughts, agree, disagree, or is there any observations? Please share. I suppose, Niall, there's a lot of resources out there to go into more detail around the role of the coaching officer and the LGFA administrative pathway, which tomorrow, when we send out the email, we will give you links to all this stuff. But I suppose there is other material there that people can touch into in their own time to know and learn a bit more about the role. And the LGFA administrative pathway is one of them.
And I suppose, William, like the pathway, the idea of the administrative pathway, everyone is that people can take in the knowledge as they need it and when they want it. That they don't have to sign up to a webinar at 8:30 on a Monday night, that they don't have to go to a specific place on a Saturday morning to learn about the roles. So not just for the club coaching officer, we've actually designed self-led online modules for every single officer role. So you can see there, we've got the club officer role specific modules there, chairperson, secretary, treasurer, and so on. But the club coaching officer is part of that. The pathway is divided into three levels. We've got A for Activate, and that's an introduction to the association. We've got A for Invest, and that's an introduction to your role. And all those modules are based upon the role description that we'll go through tonight as well. And then the last bit is M. It's for maintaining your skill set and developing yourself as an officer, as a person within your club. A lot of our webinars, a lot of our self-led courses, a lot of our recordings will live on the pathway as well, and we're constantly developing new modules and new things. Some of the things you might be interested in the maintain section would be maybe about setting up a nursery. We've one on the school club link, as far as I can remember as well, and there's one even around managing the expectations of parents, which could be a big role of the club coaching officer as well. So it's a really useful tool there. It's on Tubber, which is the Gaelic Games e-learning platform, and it's all open, all access to anyone who signs up. You just have to create an account or log into your account, and you'll get full access to all that.
Wow. So guys, if you want to know more about how to deal with parents, or how to set up a nursery in your club, or all this there, all the information is there for you. But also another tool that might be very useful to you as a club coaching officer is, you always think, okay, well, I would love to know where we are in the bigger scheme of things with all other clubs across the country. And I suppose the Club Compass is something that people mightn't be aware of, a very simple tool. And just to let you know, everyone, when I was involved in the coaching committee here, we actually did the assessment. We actually did this Club Compass. It was excellent because it gave us of what we're doing well. It showed us what we can improve on, and it actually gave us ideas and tips on how to do it. So this Club Compass is a nice little tool that anybody can fill out in their own time to kind of assess. Remember I spoke about earlier on about just having an idea of where you are as a club. This Club Compass, Niall, is a nice tool for a club coaching officer just to see where they're at in terms from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, and I think like the idea of Club Compass is threefold. I suppose it lets you figure out where you're at now, and that's always a good start. Where are we at as a club? The second part is it lets you plan. So where do you want to be, and decide how you get there. And the third thing the Club Compass initiative hopefully does is try and reduce a bit of the workload on volunteers. In that, the three associations are constantly asking for information from clubs. So by filling this in, by completing this, the information's already been passed on. That's sort of a side one. That's for me and William. That's a benefit for us, I suppose, that we can see this kind of stuff. But from your own point of view, like there is a dedicated club coaching games development section. You can see it there. And maybe if you go to the next one, William, you can maybe some of the questions. So you can see some of the questions. They're divided into must-dos, which are mandatory. They're things that are provided for in rule. You can see the should-dos, and they should be a priority for you as a club, but they're not a rule. And then the could-dos are sort of the nice things you can do on top to give your club a wee bit extra. So you can see some of the must-dos is appointing a club coaching officer, which is again by rule. The should-dos are the cool camps annually. An audit of your participation. Do you know how many players are coming through your club in the last 12 months? Do you have a coaching and games plan in place? Things like that there. And then the could-dos are, are you doing a community of practice? Are you taking part in the community of practice initiative? Are you appointing a club coaching officer that's attending training like this annually? Things like that there that are things again you should be doing and you could be doing. But the red ones are the rules. So the idea is you'll reply yes or no to these questions, and you'll get a score based on that. So maybe if you go back one, William, and that'll all come out in your report. So you can see there. Well, we can see the max score for games is 28, and you'll get a percentage then score for that. And the idea is when you fill in all the sections, you'll be scored. So you can see the circle at the top was 0% in the minute. That'll be your final score. And we're hoping that clubs that score a high enough grade in that will be accredited, will get some kind of recognition for that as well. So there's a wee bit of that to Club Compass too.
And come here now, where can people access that?
You can access that through Fern. You do need administrator rights to be able to see it. So at the minute, your club secretary is the person who can see Club Compass. What we've been advising clubs to do is actually sit down as an executive, and obviously the club coaching officer be a big part of that, and go through it together. Or what you can ask your club secretary to do is print out. So it can come in PDF form, and maybe William, I might send you a blank
if you
PDF.
don't mind. Yeah, if you don't mind, no, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and that can be, you can work through that on paper form or online first of all before you actually fill in the assessment on Fern.
Yeah, we've actually done it ourselves, guys, as a club. From a coaching perspective, just to see where we're at. It was really, really interesting. And it didn't help us identify any gaps that we need to go after. So it's just something simple that's there for you. And it's just nice to know. Okay, it's just nice to know where you're at. I suppose one question came in there. Many people in the club feel underqualified if they haven't played GA at high level. The one club committee model can help. Does the panel feel that a long history with the club is required? Some people end up in the role by default. Guys, it goes back to Niall's point earlier on. You don't have to be a great coach to be a club coaching officer. Yes, it might help. But the skills required for the role is about managing people. Can you manage people? Can you can you influence people? Can you get people to see, the vision of the club and what you're trying to do? So it's about, managing people, influencing people. So there's a lot of skills there. You could be a great coach, but in the role of a coaching officer, you're delegation, you're facilitating. There's a lot of other skills required. And I think now that's important to note that you don't have to play at the highest level to be a really good club coaching officer.
Yeah, there's a famous soccer manager, Arrigo Sacchi. Used to manage AC Milan in the 80s. Managed Italy at the 1994 World Cup, and he had a famous saying. I'm not going to try and butcher it, but it was essentially, I might have a pint of milk in the fridge, but I'm not a cow. He didn't have to be he didn't have to be a high level player. He was I think he was, to my mind, he was some kind of a salesman before he became a coach, and he was one of the I suppose legendary coaches of that age. Like, so
Yeah.
it's not about having the background. You could have people that played the game to a very high level, and maybe were involved for a long time, and were stalwarts of teams and things like that there, and they're not good coaches, and they mightn't be good club coaching officers.
Yeah. So it's again, it's what's the skills required for the role, and getting the right person, not the most popular person, not maybe the person who's been, played the game for X. Yes, it all helps, but I think we just need to look at this from a broader sense. So area 2, this is key, everyone. People. How do you attract the right people in the right roles from a coaching perspective? We'll give you a few tips and ideas, but we'd love to hear from you. This is key, because if you have the right people in the right roles, then I think you're in a good place. And how successful you are in attracting new people depends on how you treat your current people involved, or how the current people experience, or how they experience your coaching structure at the moment. So my belief is, if someone is valued, they feel part of something, they have a positive experience, then they will speak highly of the club. So they'll inform others that, what, this is a good place to be involved with. And therefore, then you increase your assistance. That's just my experience, that when something's run really well, people want to get involved in something. When something's run really poor, they don't want to be involved in something. So how you treat your current personnel will be vitally important. But we'll go through a few tips on how to achieve this. And I suppose your role and your committee is to recruit, upskill, empower, and retain. So research shows that any new people getting involved in a new role, the early support and guidance they get will determine how long they stay involved. So if you throw someone into a role and they're out of maybe they're not ready for that role, or they haven't got the support and guidance in terms of training and upskilling, then the likelihood of them staying involved would be minimal. But if they get an early experience and an early support, then the likelihood is they will stay involved. And then you empower them to be the best they can be and allow them to do the job. And we speak about earlier on, well, how can we ensure standards are maintained? And then we retain our staff or our people through maybe rewarding them regarding, it might be a simple, thank you, maybe getting them the gear, maybe bring them out for a night out, wherever it may be. So I suppose really when you're identifying people, everyone think about this. And every club is at a different stage of development. Do you have a coach recruitment selection policy? So when you're selecting people, how do you go about it? What is your process? And just let everybody know is, I suppose, if someone doesn't get a role, this first thing they'll ask Niall is, well, what was the process around this? And I think it's just something people to think about, because I understand every club is a different stage of development. In our club, we have a coach selection and recruitment policy. We have it on paper, but that took us 5 or 6 years to develop. So if you have it, then apply it. But if not, just even start by going, well, who have we now at the moment? Where are the gaps? Identify suitable people to support them. And then I suppose forward recommendations to the club executive to be ratified. But I suppose, Niall, really, it's just thinking about who's the right people for the right roles. And I suppose not just going with whoever is available. And I know that's difficult at all times, but I do think, we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word empowering, William, in your last slide. Like, to empower somebody, you remove all the barriers to success. And again, for just appointing someone who's willing to do it, and I see a couple of things coming into the chat. It is just whoever's there, and completely, like, we're not completely unaware of the situation on the ground in some clubs where a lot of people are struggling. Small clubs, might have just whoever's there. But are you giving them the best chance for success? Are they the right person to work with that group? Are they the right person to take a group of under eights, or a group of under 18s, or a group of adults? And if you don't have, I suppose, your policies and your structures and your procedures in place, are you letting them down as well? Think about it a different way. You might give whoever's willing to do it the chance to do it, but are you even just leaving them off and going, we'll see you in September and there's a bag of walls and good luck and let us know how you get on?
but also too, guys, it goes back to standards. I suppose just I'm going to answer a few of the questions that have come in. So, they come into the chat there regarding like head coaches. Denise, you mentioned that there about head coach being on your development committee. Leave that with us for a second. We'll cover that in a minute. And Frank, in relation to whoever's willing to do it, I was a coaching officer, everyone, and I coached the club going, "Geez, Will, how are you? I'm going to be in the 14s next year." Okay, well, maybe before that's how we did it, but you know what? We've new standards and guidelines in place whereby we go, okay, thank you very much for your interest. I'll have to bring that to the committee to discuss it. We'll discuss it on and we'll come back to you on it. So where we feel that person's right for that age group, or maybe that person should be in another age group. And it's just, again, it's the process is very clear. And therefore, if it's, if difficult decisions are made, there's not one person making, the decision. It's a group of people based on club policy, or is it going to be just opinion? And it's just important that we, I suppose, just cover ourselves on those things. The county coaching officer should hold meetings for club coaches to train and develop. The club coaching officer is only there it's only there in name in some clubs, but what we're trying to highlight tonight is the important role the club coaching officer has. And I suppose we'll show you later on, it's very important to tap into resources out there. And one of those resources is the county coaching officer. Okay, and loads of resources there. So yes, we would say that. So some tips for you tonight. And again, I'm just going back from my own experience and Niall's experience. I suppose what we used to do in our club is and still do, is that we really go after the head coaches. Well, who are the key people that we want to be associated with every team? We headhunt them because they're key influencers. We have a coaching policy and a guidelines, which we'll show in a few minutes, but they're the people who are going to implement it on the ground. They're going to make sure it's going to be implemented on the ground. They're the ones when they're on the sideline and there's difficult decisions to make, they'll make them and they'll follow through them. So we would advocate definitely the head coaches, lead coaches should be headhunted because they're the ones who are your key influencers on the ground. New coaches, if you're new coaches coming to your club, we would suggest they possibly start at academy level. Now, it all depends on who the person is and what their qualifications are previously. But if they're totally new people, new to coaching or just starting coaching, then introducing to the academy level would be a good start. And therefore, let them feel their way through it. And maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, they can be involved with other teams up the ladder. But I suppose the early support and guidance is key. And this is the point I'm making earlier on. Like all about standards, by law, every coach involved coaching needs to be guarded of it. So, if they need assistance to that, let's get it sorted. They need to be safeguarded. Okay, if they're not, let's organize a safeguarding one course in the club. Let's make it easy for them to access and get done. If they need a coaching course, which is by law, you need to have a basic coach qualification. Then let's organize that in the club for our coaches. And then what's vitally important that they're a member. Because everything's okay until something goes wrong. So it's vitally important that they're a member of the club. I suppose there's just a few ideas, Niall, and I suppose we're just giving our own experience, and I hope they help. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that last bit, William, very, very important. A lot of the barriers to people getting into coaching is the paperwork around it. So Garda vetting, your online safeguarding, your face-to-face safeguarding, you're completing your introduction to coaching Gaelic games, or your level 1 or your level 2, and then again being a member of a club. So having someone in place to be able to support them in doing that, whether it's a children's officer, whether it's another person designated by the club, would be so important in terms of getting new people into the club.
Exactly. And everyone, I know Jim said there about, does the LGFA have a specific recruitment and selection policy? The Gaelic Games Code of Behaviour is a guide, Jim, that will give you a lot of guidance around this area. And I have no problem. If you want, I can send you all our own club one if you want tomorrow. No problem at all. In the email, if you want to email me directly tomorrow, because I have a safe head, I have no problem sending that on to you. But the Gaelic Games Code of Behaviour would be a document that's a really good document that would give a lot of guidance around this. But I would say, Jim, I would think you need to modify or amend that to suit your club, because every club is different. So therefore, what are the guidelines that are in line with where you are in your club and your stage of development? But I have no problem sharing our one if you want to give a look at it. No bar at all. Okay. But the Gaelic Games Code of Behaviour document would be one that would give an awful lot of guidance around this area. So I suppose some things to be aware of, just in terms of when you're selecting coaches and assistant coaches, what are the safeguarding guidelines? So it should be 2 adults every 10 kids. Again, this is standards. So we don't have a person on their own. We make sure we have 2 adults every 10 kids. You need to have at least 1 qualified coach or a responsible adult. Now, the responsible adult doesn't have to have a coaching qualification. They are there to assist with the administrative. They're there to assist the coach. But you need to have at least one coaching qualification or one qualified coach. If you've more than 10 children, you must have a minimum of 3 adults. If you're with an all-female team, you must have a female involved. Vice versa, if you have an all-boys team, you must have a male involved. And if you have a mixture of both, then you need to have a mixture of both female and male. And these are things just to be aware of, and ensuring that, you know what, you've all these things in place, and it just helps you with what you're trying to achieve. So I hope that helps. Yeah, so when I say qualified, it's a basic foundation, introduction coaching Gaelic Games qualification. So it's a basic qualification. So whatever NGB a club coach is involved with, it's the basic level qualification, Philip. So for example, in Gaelic Games, it's the introduction to coaching Gaelic Games. So if you've that done, then you're okay. Or if you've done the old foundation GA or the old LGFA fundamentals coaching course, then you're deemed to have a coaching qualification. I hope I answered that. Niall, is there anything you want to add there?
No, I think I was just going to pick up on what you said, William, with the introduction to Gaelic Games, like, and that's again your minimum qualification.
So everyone, I suppose, if you get the right people involved and have a positive experience, that will help you get more people involved. I think Niall, you had a very good point there. I suppose we had an academy there years ago, and we used to have someone who's always talked to the parents on the sideline, and that's all they used to do was just talk to parents, and they'll get to know the parents, and they're finding out what their skills were. And then at the end of the year, the portfolio of who was in the club or who was around the place. And that was a good way of identifying and recruiting new coaches, actually. Yeah. But anyway, okay.
There's a great one, William, come into the chat there, and we might cover it later on. But Michael's asked, are you at risk of losing coaches if you try and tell them which age group to coach at? If a coach is also a parent, they might want to move on with their own child. And that's a big conversation, isn't it?
That's one of the difficult conversations, Michael. Yes, you may. And this is the point I'm making. Can you get to a point whereby you have a group of people overseeing the coaching structures in your club that's making the right decisions for the club? So if we willingly know that maybe putting a coach in a certain age group, we know that maybe that could create issues down the road, then we're probably setting ourselves up for future problems. So again, it's about putting the right people in the right roles. And you've got to make the decisions that's best for the club. It's the club that governs. It's the clubs that ensures standards are maintained. So the club makes decisions, not the coaching officer individual. But so this is what I'm saying is, and I have no problem sharing, Michael, our policies, just to give you an idea of that. So yeah, you could. And I suppose this idea of parents moving up with age groups, I would advocate that players should experience different coaching styles in order to be the best they can be. I think if they're with the same coach all the time, then they are exposed to one coaching style. So in our club, we like our players to be exposed to different coaching styles. Ideally, you'd like to not have parents involved. But what we've noticed in our clubs is that there is parents involved with their kids. But when they know what their role is, and they're doing it the right way, then there's no issue. So again, it's knowing the people and putting them in the right roles. But I hope that answers your question, Michael. So yeah, potentially. Yeah, but if it's the right decision, it's the right decision. I suppose being brave around that. Okay. So, and I'm going to hit into that now in a second, Mike, as well here. So how do we ensure that coaches are on the same page or working to a common goal? And how do we maximize participation? This goes back to everybody singing off the same hymn sheet. Have we club coaches in our club going silo, going off on a tangent, or doing their own thing? How do we know that coaches are interacting and engage each other? And I suppose that's for you to decide in your own club based on your own observation. So club policy guidelines will help, and meeting coaches regularly is another thing we'd advocate, and we'll go through these in more detail now. So here we go again. Does your club have a coaching philosophy? Again, you can't answer that in 10 seconds. As I said, then it's something to explore for you as a coaching officer. In our club, yes, we do have it. We have a document, and I'll show it to you in 2 seconds. But if you don't, then why can't you start the conversation with coaches? Get them all in the room and say, okay, everyone, how would we like to be viewed as a club from a coaching perspective? What words would we like associated with our club? And as a result, what kind of coaching philosophy would you like to adopt in the club? And get the thoughts of the coaches, get them involved in this process. You may have to do a SWOT analysis to help you with that. okay, in terms of what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. And then as a result of all those conversations, you come up with a philosophy, values, approach. Probably took us about 2 years to get that right. Everyone. Know what I mean? When 2 years, I mean, like the first year we might have met twice as a coaching committee. Second year we increased it, and we got there eventually. But if you have a club coaching philosophy and guidelines, then use it and use it as a guide. I suppose, Niall, what we're advocating to people tonight is that it's important to be clear on why you do what you do. Once you get that right, I think everything else falls apart or falls on. Sure, shall I say?
When you know why you're doing things, you have real clarity of purpose. And like I know, William, we're talking about club coaching philosophies here. To some people, that might sound very high level and it might sound very elite, and this is things that only the top clubs are doing. But they can be very, very simple things, can't they?
Look at it here, everyone. So this is a sample. This is a live document. Again, I'll share with you after. It's no problem. It's clarity. So we do, like in a lot of clubs, you might experience where the coaches are determining what's going on. They're dictating to, this is how it's done. And the club are going, well, how do we deal with this? But it should be the other way around. The club assist and support the coaches to be the best they can be, who can help with the players, not the other way around. Okay, so here the club need to show guidance and leadership. So here's our club philosophy, here's our values, but here's the approach. So how do we deal with players going up and down age groups? How do we deal with that? What happens if we're talking about coaches? How many coaches do we want involved with groups? What are the minimum standards? You have to be a paid member. You have to be Garda vetted. You have to sign the code of conduct and various on. I suppose by having clarity and philosophy brings more consistency in our approach. And I'm just giving you an idea. So I suppose what I'm saying to you is you could nearly start this process. If you're a bit hazy about it, you can nearly start it. And I think you're doing massive service to your club by getting people talking there. Okay, I understand that. Well, in small rural club, I coach 2 or 3 teams and aren't good enough for each grade. So guidelines about appointing coaches are somewhat of a luxury. I've been with my team since I started, and it doesn't strike me as the best idea. Everybody's open to their opinion, and everybody does what's right for their club. I suppose we're just giving our thoughts on how possibly to go about it. When we first started, we had coaches involved in multiple teams. And the idea out there was, sure, it's okay. Sure, they're okay. Should that person look at, should they're everywhere? Aren't they great? Joe, what would we do without them? But the reality of the situation was, we weren't attracting new coaches because this person was coaching everybody. There was no real consistency in approach. And we have a lot of issues going on that we're trying to, put out. So we said, no, hold on a second. Let's try and refine this and think about this a different way. How can we, and we're a small club, just that you know, that is developed, but how do we get more people involved? And how do we have a situation whereby it's not on one person all the time? And as a result of that, we went from 25 coaches to about 85 coaches. So, which is fantastic. So again, we're just throwing stuff out there. You can think and reflect. You can take what you want from tonight. We're just throwing stuff out there that we've been involved in ourselves. And every club is different, as we said, and everybody will adopt different approaches. I suppose, Niall, I just want to be clear on that as well. That's important.
Yeah, that's it. And like what you're talking about, William, is stuff that's worked for you and you've seen has worked for you. Even we go back to that conversation about, parents moving up. I suppose it's a conversation to be had within your club. It's a conversation to be had with a certain, the personality of who that parent is. If we take that as an example, you might have someone who might be able to communicate with a range of different age groups, with a range of different, I suppose, skills and communicate with a range of different people. But you also might be somebody who's brilliant with your under 10s, and you might have somebody who's excellent with your under 16s. And they might want to move up with their own child, but it mightn't actually be the best thing for your club.
Yeah. And everyone here, I know Vincent's saying there about parents. Hell, I'm a parent too, and I coach. And I'm not saying that parents cannot be involved in coaching their own children. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is that if they're right for the role, then they're right for the role. But we're just getting you to think differently here. That's all. And is there other ways of doing things? I've coached in my club and I've coached my own young fella. I've no issue with that because I see what the club are trying to achieve and I'll try and abide by that. So again, everyone, I think it's just important. We're not saying it can happen. We're just getting you to think a small bit differently about the approach. Okay. I just go to Denise. How do you deal with a coach whose coaching is not up to scratch and has courses completed by numbers and dropping like flies? first thing, you need to support that person, Denise. You need to have to support that person. You need to have regular conversations with that person. And I suppose it's very important that person is in the right area. But what I would do there, Denise, is, you know, your head coaches are important. So getting the right people to lead each of your groups is key here. And then if there's a coach you feel is not up to scratch, then make sure they're with someone like who's a good head coach that'll guide them, that'll put them in the right direction, that'll support them. Sure, in my opinion, Denise, a lot of it is around your head coaches, your leaders, your influencers. And I think that that's important, as they ensure then that the right ethos and approach is applied. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast, everyone. So another thing you could try out, everyone, is get coaches in the room on a regular basis. Even if you do it twice this year, at the start of the year, get them all in. You know, get them all in. You know, what are your plans for the year? How can we support you? Ask open questions and get them in at the end of the year. How do things go? How can we improve? What can we do next year? Or if you're really in a good place, then you can apply where you're meeting your coaches on once every quarter and just ask them how things going in coaching. Where can we support you in what you're doing? Have you any challenges? What are the potential solutions? And every time you meet as people outside of the training regime, then you're raising your standards. I know a lot of people go, we're busy, we've enough doing. But if you value coaching and coaching standards, then you need to make time for this. It might be only 1 hour every 3 months. Then give it the hour every 3 months. So meeting people regularly is vitally important. And giving your coaches a chance to have their voice is very important as well. And we have a new concept called the Gaelic Games Club Coaching Community Practice. If you go onto the LGFA YouTube channel, we have a bit more information around that. But what we're asking as coaching officers is, and it worked really well in our club, was when people meet more regularly and they learn through that collaboration, there's a more consistent approach. Now, is there anything you want to add there?
No, I think the community of practice, myself and you, William, were chatting about this today, that this might seem one of the sort of big ideas or the blue sky thinking ones, but if you can get this right, it could open up a whole range of opportunities for your club.
Yeah.
The entire principle, doesn't William, that communication and communication's good, and where there's no communication, you know, that's where negativity starts. That's where the negative environment starts creeping in. So if one thing a community of practice does, it gives people ownership, gives people accountability, gives people buy-in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, 100%, everyone. And I suppose what we're trying to say here is that if you're uncertain in what you want to achieve in your coaching, in terms of your coaching beliefs and your coaching issues, then it needs an inconsistent approach. Like, we've clubs coming on to us every day saying about coaches doing their own thing, guys. We've everyday coaches, you know, how do we deal with coaches doing their own thing? How do we deal with coach that's not not attending coaching courses? How do we deal with the situation where a coach is just taking players from other age groups? Like, they're what we hear every day. So by putting these processes in place, it'll eliminate those issues and allow you to progress and develop. But you're going to have difficult conversations and decisions made to allow that to happen. So what we're trying to do is certainty, consistency. Then we've less fractured personal relationships now, because everybody's on the one page, less chaotic conditions. So yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to do here. How do you think differently so that it's not you feeling that you're in multiple roles or that you're overburdened and then you're burnt out? We'll try and make sure how everybody feels part of something and we can spread the load. So I suppose, how do we develop players across age cohorts? This is our next area. So we're nearly there. We're on our 4th area. So how do we develop? So this is a lot of questions that come in goes, geez, what should we be doing with each age group? You know, that's always comes back. Or what should coach? Give me a bit of guidance on what we should be covering in each age group. So there's a consistency. But maybe other clubs might ask, what's our playing style? That could be a conversation you could have. That could be one of your group discussions. So really, we have this Gaelic Games player pathway. And I suppose what it is every player given an opportunity to play our games. Every player. But a coach will coach appropriate to the stage of development of their players and the appropriate level of training. So that's what we're trying to achieve. And in order to develop players, there's 4 key areas you to develop: technical, tactical, physical, and psychosocial. And psychosocial is where, well, how do players interact with each other? How do they respect each other? And how do coaches and athletes interact with each other? That's vitally important. I think sometimes we probably forget about that. So LGFA have a competencies chart. Here's what it is. Give a look at it. It looks at all the age groups. It looks at what you should be doing: technical, tactical, physical, psychosocial. It looks at what type of coaching style helps. But this is a guide. But I would say to youth coaching officers tonight is take it away with you. Give a look at it. Is it something you can adopt in your own club like we did? So this is our club one. Okay. So here's a sample club one. We had the club coaching competency chart, which is great. But we said, you know what? No, we'd like to just adapt it to our own club needs, or where do we feel as coaches we need to go. So use all the resources there to guide you, but then you need to make it your own. And that's vitally important, because once you make it your own, a lot more people will support it because they would have inputted to the data and the process. Niall, thoughts on that?
Yeah, and you talked about the player pathway, the Gaelic Games player pathway there, William. A big job of a club coaching officer might be getting coaches to understand. We talk about F10 model, and we talk about F and T's and E's and different things that got there. Sometimes it's hard to break that down and understand where do you actually come in here, and where's your path, where's your place on the pathway, and where can you help out players at certain levels. I think the LGFA competency, the player competency chart can really help in that, in terms of the things you should be focusing on at a different stage of development as well.
Exactly. And everyone, you'll probably see there's a common theme here tonight, in that these are all laying the foundation so that then you can develop further. But you need to have all these things in place. And if it takes you a year to get it in place, then give it the year. Or it's okay. Time is okay. We've loads of time to get these right. If you, well, my own experience, you get this, your philosophy, your values, your approach, your player pathway, you get all that agreed and all those organizational stuff done really well. It really helps your decision-making process, and it helps you make better decisions, but also helps you deal with any issues that you may potentially come across. Okay, so how to ensure our coaches apply to the coaching standards? It's a tough one. Okay, it's a tough one. And I know a question came in there about, how do we utilize the coach pathway? And the coach pathway is all about providing good coach education support for our coaches, whatever age groups or context they're in. I think I'm going to touch on here a small bit, and hopefully I answer that question. So, standards. They need to know what their standards are first. So before any coach goes out coaching, they need to know what their expectations are of them and what the club expects and what they expect of the club. That needs to be clear. Go back to my point earlier on. If they're not clear on that, then you may run into issues later on about how they select teams, how they, work with two age groups, or how they pick two teams, or whatever it may be. So they need to be very clear. If they're clear on that from the start, then you won't have issues during the year, because, okay, I'm signing up to this. I'm getting involved in this club. I know what's expected of me. I know how this runs. I know what the processes are. We'll be okay here, and we're signing a code of conduct. If someone does get involved this year, we're even existing coaches, then look at the coach pathway and look at the resources out there. So, for example, LGFA are running coach to tackle workshops around the country. We're running perfecting the kick workshops. We're running key to coaching workshops. We have our formal, informal coach education opportunities. So find out what's out there and maybe get your coaches on these programs or workshops. We have the LGFA YouTube channel, loads of topics covered, loads of topics. Maybe you can download that and send it out to your coaches. So you're supporting early support and guidance that's there from the coach pathway. There's a Gaelic Games Club Coaching Community Practice Program that we're trying out at the moment. And hopefully that'll be a bigger concept next year, where we're getting coaches meeting regularly. We've 12 coaches involved in that in the moment. But the peer coach support program is whereby, I know a lot of coaching officers, if you want to go and observe a coach and give them feedback on their coaching. Now, that sounds easy, but the coach needs to be open to that. And I think you need to have a culture in a club whereby it's okay to give feedback, and people are open to hearing constructive feedback. Niall, that's not the easiest. But in April, everyone, we're going to be doing the peer coach support program. So if there's people in your club that love to get upskilled in observing sessions in your club and giving feedback to coaches, and if you'd like to get upskilled in this, then we'll give you the opportunity in April. So watch this space. But I definitely think, clubs that get people to come out and observe their sessions, but I'm not going to be smart, everyone. I think that's down the road if you don't have the other stuff in place first. That could be 2 or 3 years down the road before you start doing that stuff, until you get the other stuff in terms of your philosophy and approach and pathway in place. Because I think you need to have something to go off, if that makes sense. Niall, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's not even, William, you going out and observing coaches. It's back to that idea that you're not just sending a coach out in January with a bag of balls and going,
yeah,
let us know how you get on. That you're actually taking interest in going, well, what is going on with our under 16s? What's happening with our under 8s? And
Yes.
go out and making sure that, again, back to the pathway, back to our competency chart, that we are coaching around the things we should be coaching around for those age groups, for those developmental ages.
Exactly. And everyone, that comes back to the culture within. What kind of culture are you creating? What kind of environment you're creating? Wouldn't it be fantastic if we have coaches meeting regularly? First of all, wouldn't it be fantastic if coaches would come to you and go, geez, will you come and watch my session and give me feedback? Wow. Come on. We have a lot of other stuff to put in place before that happens, because we've done the peer coach support program. We've done a pilot of it, lads, and it's challenging. It has been challenging because clubs are not ready for it yet. Even the club coaching community practice concept, it's challenging because clubs are not ready for it. Why? Because they don't have the foundation in place, their coaching philosophy, their values, their approach, their player pathway, they're really, their policies. Get them in places and then the rest will take off. So hopefully that'll help. And you could lead and start this conversation around these areas. So the coach pathway, as outlined, is there. As I say, guys, if you watch out on the LGFA, on Tubber, on the Gaelic Games websites, there's loads of coaching opportunities, whether it be formal with your coach education courses, informal with your webinars or your YouTube channel, or it could be conferences or workshops, or non-formal like the club coaching community practice. There's so many things out there. So please, go onto our website, see what's there, or even email us and we'll give you thoughts and ideas on where we can signpost you going forward. So I suppose to finish off tonight, just a few small things. What other stuff are there for you to be, I suppose, to help you in your role as a club coaching officer? And here they are. So if you're a club and you want more players, to get new players involved with the Gaelic Girls Initiative. If you want to upskill your coaches around how to deal or coach or interact, engage with teenage players, with the Gaelic for Teens Initiative. If you want to get more people involved in the club from a social aspect, with the Gaelic for Mothers and Others Initiative. So there's a lot of good stuff there. The LG or the Gaelic Games Club Nursery Program is going to be coming on stream shortly. But on the LGFA YouTube channel, there's an excellent club nursery program. Videos, an outline, excellent document by our colleagues, Vinny Whelan and Claudia Flanagan. Brilliant document, excellent. And linking with our growth and participation officer on that. If you're cool camp, if you're running your own camps, just be aware that there is specific guidelines you need to abide by. So if you are running your own cool or your own camp outside of cool camps, please make that contact before you start, I suppose, planning for that. You have your school club links. Again, excellent resource on the LGFA website on how to develop school club links. Give a look at it. And it's all about being self-sufficient. How do you retrain referees or recruit referees? We have our Go games, we have our adult referee courses. So there's loads of stuff there for you. Just find out where to get it, find out what's there and what can support you in your role. And I suppose that's the key, Niall. First of all, find out what you need and then go sourcing the stuff that might help you with the issue you have.
Yeah, I know, you come in as a club coaching officer, you might have big ideas and go, I'm going to change everything in the club. And you might find out that there's no point reinventing the wheel. And I know it is one of the things that LGFA does really, really well is our outreach programs. We've so much on the ground support for clubs, to take part in structured, sort of formal processes that'll improve them as a club, whether it be coaches, players, or structures. And it's all there. So like your biggest thing you can do is make yourself aware of all this stuff and put it forward for your club,
Exactly, everyone. And talk to other people, like who was in the role previously. Talk to other club coaching officers. Talk to your county development officers or your committee, your national provincial staff, which is us. Come to us, ask us questions. Send us an email. We'll get back to you. We will get back to you if you have any issues or the official guide. What are the rules around your role and making sure you're abiding by them? As I said, the YouTube channel and the e-learning portal. So more, I would say 100% get the player's advice. It's very simple. Like with the coaches, get them in a room, have a club forum internally, get their voice, ask them how do they find the coaching in the club, ask them how can we improve what we're doing in the club, how can we make the environment better for you. Very simple in that approach. And I suppose the Gaelic for Teens, Maura, will promote that an awful lot, the player's voice. So even after a coaching session, have a box in the center of the table, anonymous, and they can write comments on how they found the session or how they find you as a coach. But again, goes back to more, we need to have a culture of feedback. We need to promote that. We want to hear feedback. Sometimes we don't want to hear feedback, but I do think we need to put the ground rules in place first. And I suppose, as I said, guys, there's an official guide there. Download it from the LGFA website and just give that a read over and ensure that you are abiding by all the guidelines regarding this club association. Yes, Frank, if you want coaches to come and observe, or if you want your coaches to observe a session in place, it's called the Key to Coaching Workshop. So if you want to get a club coaches or a coach developer and a coach to come into your club to take a session and coach observe it, we can do that. And yes, through the peer coach support program, we have people that, if you want people to go down and observe your coaches and give feedback, we have people trained up in that area. But what we're hoping to do in April, Frank, is that we're hoping to train up people in your club to be able to do this as well. So that's the aim. But yeah, we can signpost people that have trained up in this area to give feedback to club coaches if you're open to that. But I do think, though, guys, there's other steps that need to be met first before we get to that level. But if your club is in a great place regarding coaching structures, then I definitely would advocate it. Even if you do it once or twice a year, that's enough. You don't have to overdo it. Okay, so the LGFA YouTube channel is there, the hub and the website hub. There's loads of webinars. There's loads of information on club officer guidelines. There's the LGFA administrative pathway. Give a look at it. We'll give all the links to that tomorrow as well. Register for up and coming events, guys. The more you know about the information or the knowledge, the more knowledge you have, the better you can be in your role. So going back to the point we're making to finish it off, in order to have a real positive coaching environment, you need to have clarity around why you do what you do. And as a result, then your approach would be more consistent. Even if you start the conversation around this, I think you're starting the foundation for something really bigger down the road. So that would be my thoughts. We're back on the 27th of February with how to coach the goalkeeper. If you're interested, come along. Niall, what's the one thing you would say or advice you give in the chat function? Let me know what you took from tonight. So what's the one thing you took from tonight in the chat function? Please let us know. But Niall, what's the one bit of advice you give everyone?
I think probably the one thing that I would have took away from this, William, or would like people to take away from this, is that you're not on your own. There's so much there. There's so much resource. There's so much information. There is no point reinventing the wheel. There's so much there for people to use and take advantage of. And like we're, from me and yourself's point of view, William, we're not creating it to put our armor in it and make no one use it. So, make sure you're getting used to it. Make sure you're promoting it in your club. Make sure you're signposting stuff to your officers, and don't think you're on a wee island on your own.
Exactly. And there's always assistants out there. William.harmon@lgfa.ie. Niall.Murrine at lgfa.ie. Now you have it, Niall. Now everyone's going to be emailing you now, Niall. But if you want to send us a text, give us a phone call, send us an email, ask loads of questions, because we've been in this exact scenario ourselves, so we can relate to it all. We're not just, coming out with this fluff stuff, lads. We've been there. We've been coaching officers, so we know what it's like on the ground. And I think anything you're doing is really good. The fact you're taking on the role, it's a real positive. And just take it slow. For me, it takes time. Be patient, build the foundation, and let everything else then follow after that. It might be 3-4 years before you see the real fruition of what you're doing. But I think if you get a good base and a good culture on the ground, I think you're in a good place. I'll just check the questions just to make sure I've covered everything. Yeah. I think we've covered everything. Yeah, I think we have. So on that note, everyone, thank you very much for your time. We hope you enjoyed it. This will be available to view on the LGFA YouTube channel from tomorrow on. You know where we are if you need any assistance. Again, thank you very much for your interaction. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And the very best of luck in your roles.